1 year. I won't go further. I mean, tudo bem. Thanks to be here for this talk about making your security policy auditable. It doesn't work already. That's really good. I'm Nicolas Frankel. Who doesn't know me? And I need to. Everybody knows me. That's good. I don't need to tell you how good I am, why you should come to this talk. You are already there anyway. This summer, I was fired by my previous company, so now I work for Loft Labs, a company that does two products, vCluster. Who is using Kubernetes, actually? Wow, amazing. Do you know vCluster? You should. That's very good. So if you have time, just have a look. It's really nice. Today, I won't talk about vCluster. I will talk about something that probably is going to be worse and worse, security policy issues. You probably know, if you come to this room, you probably are interested in the fact that the security policy problems costs millions for companies, and perhaps in total probably will cost billions. And again, it's going to be worse and worse. People are going to take advantage of that. With AI, it's going to be really, really fun. Your companies in general, they have two ways to deal with that. They really are interested in like closing a gap, in making the IT system more secure, or they want to have plausible deniability, saying, oh, look, I'm not responsible for that. I did all due diligence. That's not my fault. You cannot sue me. Between the two, the answer is, in general, it won't change the effect that it's a fact that we are going to have more and more audits. You will have more and more audits, and you need to deal with it as an architect, as a developer, or whatever you are. I won't tell you here about how to deal with that in your company. Like, if you are here, you are interested in security, your management doesn't really give a crap about security because it has no business value. So if you are raising a flag saying, hey, look, we have a problem, we need budget to fix it, then your manager probably don't want to manage that because, you know, it won't look good that he fixed a security hole, because the problem is if he doesn't fix it and something happens, so it's a risk he's probably willing to take. However, my advice, I've written a blog post about that. If you want to manage security, if you have a management position, at least, you need to treat security as risk management, right? So you need to evaluate the likelihoods of the risk. You need to evaluate the security of the risk. You need to, for each action that mitigate the risk, evaluate the cost and the benefits. And the secret recipe at the end is you need to have somebody who is signing, yes, I accept the risk, or no, we will take this mitigation action. That's the only way that somebody will feel responsible and will take action or not. If you have decision by committee or you have nobody to sign, it's not going to work. So that's the magic recipe. I will give you my consulting fees afterwards. My demo here will be in the Java Spring ecosystem, who is completely outside this world. Spring, everybody knows Spring? Amazing, great. So you know it's the Java framework nowadays. It's very widespread. Probably there are people working on Quarkus here, but it doesn't like contradict the fact that it's very, very widespread and a lot of people do Spring. And inside the whole Spring ecosystem, there is this thing called Spring Security. And I am old enough to have known a time when there was no Spring Security. It was called SAG Security. Who remembers SAG Security? And you are not that old. Amazing. Yeah, it was merged more than 15 years ago, and now everybody thinks that it's part of Spring, and it is part of Spring, but it started as a completely outside project. And Spring Security does everything for you, right? It does authorization, it does authentication, it protects you against most exploits, it integrates, sorry, it integrates with third parties, amazing. And now today, I want to have a very simple use case, which is not that simple, otherwise it wouldn't be fun. Look, I want to have a policy that allows me to check my own salary or the salary of my direct reports, which is not completely stupid, right? You are allowed to check your salary, but you are also allowed to check the salary of your direct reports. So how can we implement it with Spring Security? Because in general, people would say, oh, like security is easy. We implement role-based access control. We have a URL. Only people with this role can access this URL. It's easy. But here, we are working with data. It's much harder, right? No, still doesn't work. So we need to have custom codes. So either we back something ourselves, or we have a couple of ways to work with it. So we can like change the authentication object, or normally what most people who really had good Spring Security had, they would have an access decision voter. So you would have a multiple voter, very granular ones, and each of them can say, yes, I accept, or no, I deny. But because I'm not a Spring Security expert, I will just like code the authentication object myself, and everything will be good. So how does it look like? I hope this works. Yes, amazing. Oh. Just for fun, once I did an internal demo at my company, and it was about getting the streams of data and making, I think it was like buses on the map move. And I presented the demo, and I heard, wow, and I thought, wow, a really good demo. No, they were just impressed because I did this. They didn't care about the demo at all. It was like the clicker, oh, amazing. Very good one, very expensive, by the way. So this is how it works. Sorry. I will access the URL. I check if I have an authorization token. If I have no authorization token, I go away. Then, because I'm super lazy, my authentication will be just check if the password is in the account database, right? Reverse check, it's not what you should do. It's not authenticated, not encrypted, not nothing. Just, I'm lazy, right? If I don't find the password, that means that I don't find the account, go away. And now I check, is it my own salary, right? I check the path that I was trying to access. I check if the path is similar to the account name. If yes, perfect, I return the result. Otherwise, I need to check all my direct reports, right? And then I check the hierarchy. If it's in the hierarchy, I return 200. If not, I return no, you can't. Make sense for you? Good. Still doesn't work. So time for a demo, because I talk a lot and I like the truth is in the code. So here I have a Spring Boot app. This is a Kotlin app because I love Kotlin. And this is how it looks. I have the routes and I have the security configuration. The security configuration, yeah, I love Kotlin because of this. I can read the DSL. This is like amazing. And basically what I want to do is I want to have a filter, sorry, that allows me or not to go there. The rest is, since I will be using an API, I don't need session management. There is a lot of things that I don't need, so I just like remove them. And here I have the token authentication filter, but here is what interests me. Like I want the authentication manager. And this is exactly what I told you. First, I get the token. If there is no token, just go away. Then with the token, not encrypted, blah, blah, blah. I try to find it in the account repo. If I don't find it, go away. Otherwise, I get the details. I check if the account that I'm trying to access is myself. If yes, I return what I want. Or otherwise, I go check further in the hierarchy. So I will start the application. I need to be in the right branch. Yes, Docker Compose down, just to be sure. Docker Compose up. And I will curl, so I will make it a bit bigger. Oh, I'm too lazy. Curl local hosts, it's 8080/ finance salary Bob. So I need to be Bob. Let's say I'm Bob. So it's authorization Bob. Yeah, I'm Bob. I can access myself and I see that. Is it big enough? Let's do it again. So I'm Bob. I can access the salary, my salary, and the salaries of my direct reports. It's amazing. Now you see we have Alice, who is also like one of the direct reports. Can I access Alice's salary? Yes, I can access Alice's salary. That's amazing. Can Alice access her own salary? Well, I believe she can. And can Alice access Bob's salary? No. Amazing, I'm still an amazing coder. I could code a simple business rule. So this is my initial state. It works, but now there are a couple of issues. Just look natural. Always on stage look natural. The problem is this policy. So you are all familiar with Spring Security. Even if you are not Kotlin developers, you understand the codes. But imagine an auditor who comes and has to read that. So first, you need to locate the class, and then you need to understand everything. There is few chances it happens, or it would mean that every auditor needs to have a mental knowledge of the specific technology that you want to work on. So you will need to have auditors who know perfectly well Spring Security, then about Quarkus Security, then about Micronaut Security, and it's only in Java. Now imagine I want to use Scala for whatever reason. It's going to be hard. The other issues is that the security policy is compiled to bytecode and runs in the jar. So at runtime, I have no clue what happens. The source code could actually be completely different from what I think it is, which is not amazing. Worst case would be it's inside a container, so something happened, the container is down, and I need to understand why did we do that? So, one way to cope with that would be like events and logs. Every time we take a decision, we log what happens, and we log upon which data we acted, which is great. That's the basics. But unfortunately, it means that at the beginning, you don't know. You need to wait for runtime to actually audit. You can't have prior audits, which defeats the purpose. So it's necessary, but it's not enough. Just a word on auditing. I mentioned about plausible deniability in the beginning, and it binds to that. My experience with security teams is there are two kinds of security teams. The ones who are really, really good, and they don't have enough time to do everything, the technical ones, and the teams that are more about compliance, and I call it checkbox-driven security. Due diligence, yes. Like in the plane, they have a compliance checklist. When you sit at the emergency exit, they ask you, are you willing to open the door in case of fire? Yes. They never check that you actually can do it. And I am always thinking, oh God, people are not trained. It can be really, really bad. But anyway, it's compliance. They can just like pretend that it works. So you need to think about that. So I suppose that we want to have auditors that are actually willing to do the job, and the company is interested in having a regular audit. The solution is, easy. Like conceptually speaking, it's policy as code. You know, we have everything as code now, so why not have policy as code? And it will solve all the problems that we have. We will get all the same benefits that we have right now by writing the policy in the codes, because it will be in the Git repo, plus it will be easily reviewed. Sounds like a good idea. So we just need to find a good implementation. So here I listed a few implementations that might work for you. I will use Open Policy Agent because it's the one that is the most open source of all, the one that is the most widespread in my opinion. But if you are using AWS, then you can use Cedar. And if you are fond of Google product, you can use one of the implementation of Google Zanzibar. So the idea of Open Policy Agent is exactly what I mentioned. It's a unified toolset, so it works across all languages and all tech stacks, and it decouples policy from the code, because that's what we want from the beginning. So how does it change? Well, we still have the same like basic stuff. We check about the token, blah, blah, blah. We get the account from the database, but instead of checking in the database about the hierarchy and whatever, we just ask Open Policy Agent, look, I am this person and I want to access this account, am I allowed? So it's an API call. Yeah, you are not convinced. You are right, it seems a bit too magical, right? We need to dive a bit further. So we still need somehow to code it. But instead of coding it in Java or Kotlin or JavaScript, we shall have an ubiquitous language that works across all tech stacks. And in that case, Open Policy Agent uses Rego. Who knows about Rego? Who likes Rego? Yeah, it's crap, right? Yeah, I know. But still, this is how it is for the moment. And this is the Rego stuff. So you have packages, you can declare variables, and then you have rules. I will allow blah, blah, blah. I will allow blah, blah, blah. And I mean, this, if you are an auditor, you learn once, and then you can work across all companies in the world. Of course, you need not only to have the rule, you need to have data. Because the hierarchy, for example, well, is data. You need to somehow get it. And on the other way, you need to have the dynamic data, like I am this person. And this is the idea behind these inputs and is data. Data is actually a JSON file that represents my static data, my hierarchy. The hierarchy doesn't change so often. And input is the data from my requests. And I can pass whatever I want. So I have been super lazy, and I didn't code a way for the database to create the data file. Normally, what you should do is every time the database of the hierarchy, I mean, I'm using a database, but probably it will be a LDAP or any other enterprise dictionary. No, it's not a dictionary, directory software. You should actually send an event so that you recreate the data file and then you store it. What happens is, in general, you got the policy code, so the OPA code plus the data file, you bundle it, and then you put it on a web server to be accessed by the Open Policy agent. The Open Policy agent actually doesn't have any state, which is a good idea because you don't want to store state on the agent because it will come and go if you are in an enterprise where the nodes are coming and going. So you put just the data to be served by a web server. Then the Open Policy agent will access it and will take the decision based on it. So that's the next step of my demo. I need to stop this and I need to restart it just to be sure I up and down. And now I don't check anymore if I'm part of the hierarchy. I kept the authentication codes, but now the authorization itself is basically I send a request to the Open Policy agent with, with data that corresponds to my input path. I can show you that it still works, of course. Can Alice access Bob? No, Alice can't access Bob. Can Alice access Alice? Yes, Alice can access Alice. Can Bob access Alice? Amazing. It works. So my business rules still are good. I can still do whatever I want. We can go further yet. What we have at the moment, we still are using Spring Security for authentication. We moved the authorization part away, but we are still using it for authentication. And in that case, it doesn't make any sense. Authentication should probably not be in your app, but be at the entrance of your information system. So we push it away to the API gateway or whatever you are using of the reverse proxy, and you can use any third-party authentication system, Keycloak, OpenID Connect. Here I'm using Apache API 6, and I'm super lazy, so I will be just like storing the value inside Apache API 6. And this is my new model. First, we go to Apache API 6. We try to authenticate. Yes, it works. No, it doesn't work. And then we call OPA. And the app basically is now very free of whatever crap we wanted to do. We can remove Spring Security finally. So we go to the last step. I stop it. And, here I have the secure boot stuff. There is no more Spring Security. And my application, like the security config, is just like a simple filter. I'm just calling OPA because here I'm already authenticated. And here I was not so lazy. I have a batch job when I start the Docker Compose file. I have, it's not a batch job, it's a streaming job, but that will read the accounts from the database and push them to Apache API 6. So the source of truth, which I didn't do for the hierarchy, is in the database, and every time there is a change in the database, I put the accounts in Apache API 6. Again, this is a demo. You could have Kafka, you could have anything. My idea is you have one source of truth and you have derived like data. Here, my source of truth is the database for the authentication, and the derived data is actually Apache API 6. Did I start it already? Yes. Let's try again. Can Bob access Alice? Oh, no, because here I'm using the application and I should use the API gateway. So my port is not the same. Oh, no, what happened? So here, probably what I told you, I streamed the data from the database to the application. It didn't work, and that sucks a lot. That's the demo part of it. Docker compose. First, I need to be here. cd app. Docker compose stop consumers. Yep. Let's try it. Otherwise, you will need to trust me, which is not great. Containers, audit security, and consumers, logs. It should work. If not, trust me. Yes, but this is a demo. It's not like, sometimes I just restart, you know. Have you tried to switch it off and on again? It works. So Bob can access Alice. Yes, Bob can access Bob. Yes, and here, now, it's not the application that's refused, so you won't see any JSON here. So I need to be verbose, and I still have a 401. So here I can't access it. I don't have the JSON because it's the API gateway that prevents me from going further. And yeah, so my demo is not perfect because, as I mentioned, on the authorization part, I don't recreate the bundle every time there is a change because I was too lazy. So I was like, there are two sources of truth. There is the database and the JSON that I crafted myself, but it shouldn't be hard to create such a job. And Rigo is not widespread and not super great, so meh. But still, I believe that it solves the main issue that audits are part of the business life, are parts of the developer's life, and it's going to be worse and worse, I believe. If you have your policy deep inside the codes, it's very hard to audit. And if there are tools that do that, they are crazy. For example, once I was working on a very big e-commerce app, and the security team handed me a 200 pages report by HP 45. 200. I had to read through all 200 pages, and one of the stuff was really crazy. They were trying to inject a query parameter and to check if the output was different. And guess what? The application was localized. So of course, if you change the language for French to English, of course, the output would be different. And that was really like stupid, really stupid checks. On those 200s, there were 3 real issues. One of them was severe. I really recognize it, but the rest was just crap. So let's try to make the job of the auditors easier, because if you don't make their job easier, then you will have crappy tools that audit your code, and the results are not great. OPA and a good architecture might help you with that. Thanks for listening to me. I'm still on Twitter. I don't know why. I'm on Mastodon and on Blue Sky as well. I think like Blue Sky in the last months has really taken a lot of people by surprise. Now I get the same issues as Twitter like 10 years ago, you know, like you refresh and there is an internal server error because there is too much traffic. But if they improve their infrastructure, it's going to be really, really good. If you are interested in the code that I've shown, then everything is on GitHub. I just have a bit.ly link so that I can check how many people are actually opening the link. Spoiler, 1 or 2 per conference, but still, I still like to have codes. And if you're interested in knowing more about Loft, about vCluster, have a look. It's the way that I can go to conferences and talk to you about stuff. And now, I was very fast, I don't know why. I have a lot of time for questions, so now is the time for your questions. Yes, don't be afraid, don't be shy.
So you talk about Rigo and this whole new language, and I'm thinking, is it really worth it? Like, what's the difference between what you said and just putting, I don't know, everything authentication related in an API service, which we do in a language that we already know? I know it's easier for the auditors, but you can do it like readable for like auditing, like in a language if you do it in a readable way without needing to learn a whole new language.
I understand your point. You make an interesting case, but you still think like a developer, which is good. You are a developer. I am a developer. We think like developers, right? Yeah. Yes, you might think, oh, it's readable. I've written my JavaScript in a very readable way, and I can find you other people who still think that your JavaScript is not readable. You know, like clean codes. What is the definition of clean code? Like code that is easy to read, easy to maintain, easy to review. I find you 10 developers, you will have 12 ways.
Yeah, but you will have the same in Rigo, right?
No, because it's declarative language. That's
okay,
the main difference. It's a declarative language. And so you can't do loops. There is a lot you can't do by essence.
Okay. And why Rigo and not like, I don't know, there are,
I told you,
languages already existing,
I'm not
right?
advocating for Rigo. I think it's popular language, but this is what we have at the moment. If you are using Cedar, I don't know how they code it. Probably it will be different. But what I really like in OPA is you can have this like policy across everything. For example, you can delegate to OPA agent access to your Kubernetes cluster, which is not coding at all. It's just you delegate to it. So every time you need to take a decision saying, I have this static data, I have this dynamic data, what should I do?
Yeah, I like the idea of delegating it to a different place. My question was like, do you need really like a new language? But I get your point. So yeah.
That's the state of the art at the moment. So I can't say I'm super happy, but at least it avoids craziness. Like, oh, look, I'm a developer, I'm very smart. And instead of writing, duplicating 10 times this line of code, I will create a for loop, and then I will create a meta model that, no, stop. No, it needs to be readable, and you need to have very simple stuff to prevent like smart people from trying to do very smart things too.
And is there any worry about like efficiency on those?
You are making an API call.
No, but then the whole API has to kind of be efficient. So I'm talking about efficiency.
What do you mean by efficiency?
Like, is there any way of making Rigo performant, or like, is there any way of customizing, like, or be able
again, the problem is you are making an API call. So even if you make Rigo less or more performant by 1 millisecond, the API call will be like half a second. So,
yeah. Thanks.
Continuing on the same train of thought as I was saying, I was thinking about the performance once again, because of you're introducing a slight delay. Instead of just running the code when the API is first called, you have to make a second call to get to verify everything, and that introduces, like you said, half a millisecond of execution time. So that's continuation of what he was asking.
I have the exact same number of calls. Before I made, 2 calls to the database, and now I have 1 call to the API gateway that might delegate to Keycloak or whatever, and the second call is to the OPA agent. So I still have the same number of calls. Of course, we are using an API. It will be less efficient.
Of course, because an API call obviously takes a lot longer than
Yes.
an SQL query.
But my question that I ask a lot is it better to have a very, very fast architecture where basically you have no observability, because observability takes time, right?
Yeah.
Authorization, even if you look at the database, it takes time. Everything takes time. And it's an idea of balance, right?
It's a trade-off.
And I can't, yeah, exactly. And I can't answer in your context. I know that in most of my context, I would prefer to have observability and auditability and, but I'm not telling you should do it. That's up to you to decide as a team lead, an architect in your own context. My idea is nowadays, our problems, the money is not, oh, look, we saved 10K on our cloud bill. It's more, oh, well, we need to pay millions because our security policy had an issue.
Okay.
It's risk management.
Yeah, makes sense, the trade-off.
Yeah. No more questions. So have a good day, bon dia, and enjoy the lunch. I'm still here if you have questions and we are too shy to ask.